Woodrow Wilson was born on December 28, 1856, to Jessie Janet Woodrow and Presbyterian minister Joseph Ruggles Wilson in Staunton, Virginia, the third of 4 children. He enrolled at Davidson College but transferred to Princeton in 1875, studied law at the University of Virginia, and earned his Ph.D. in political science and history at Johns Hopkins University. Wilson married Ellen Louise Axon on June 24, 1885 in Savannah, Georgia. Wilson spent 20 years at Princeton as a professor and eventually became its 13th president. During his time there, he suffered his first stroke, which seriously threatened his life. In 1910, after his career at Princeton, Wilson became the governor of New Jersey, determined to reform. Wilson campaigned as an unconstitutional governor during his bid for governor of New Jersey and won decisively in the general election, which began 2 years of reform as the state's governor. He pushed legislation that mandated direct party primaries for all elected officials in the state, meaning that people voted directly for their state legislators rather than voting for representatives to choose their legislators. He also attempted to reduce corrupt campaign practices by requiring all candidates to file campaign financial statements, limiting campaign expenditures, and outlawing corporate aid to political campaigns. Furthermore, Wilson pushed for a workers' compensation law to aid families whose workers were killed or injured on the job. Wilson's actions as governor of New Jersey caught the eye of the National Democratic Party, and he ran for president during the election of 1912. His platform for change was called the New Freedom, and he was greatly inspired by Thomas Jefferson's vision of small, educated farmers. With the New Freedom, Wilson tried to attack what he called the Triple Wall of Privilege, which were the tariff, the banks, and the trust. He was elected president in 1912 and was the last president to ride a horse-drawn carriage to their inauguration. To combat tariffs, which protected large industrialists to the detriment of small farmers, Wilson signed the Underwood-Simmons Act of 1913, which reduced tariff rates. He also signed the Federal Reserve Act, which established the Federal Reserve System, making the nation's currency more flexible because loans were too expensive for the average American. The Clayton Antitrust Act of 1914 named certain business tactics illegal and also declared strikes, boycotts, and peaceful picketing legal. Although Wilson had an affair when visiting Bermuda on a restorative trip in 1907, Wilson and his wife Ellen moved on from the incident and stayed a couple. Sadly, Ellen died of kidney disease in 1914, just after Wilson's first year in office. Wilson was greatly distraught. Just 1 year later, however, Wilson married Edith Bowling Galt, who cared for him during the final years of his presidency. As such, Wilson was one of only 3 presidents to marry while in office. To appeal to a broader range of Americans so that he could secure a second term, Wilson signed legislation that approved a federal trade commission to watch over business, as well as a child labor bill and workers' compensation act. He also agreed to limit the workday of interstate railroad workers to 8 hours and signed the Federal Farm Loan Act, which made it easier for farmers to get loans. Woodrow Wilson supported women's right to vote. During his presidency, a group of suffragists picketed outside the White House, and despite starting peacefully, they turned violent and many were arrested and thrown in jail. Wilson was shocked to learn that many women had gone on a hunger strike and were being force-fed by police. This was a major reason why he publicly endorsed women's right to vote in January of 1918. With his daughter, Jessie Woodrow Wilson Sayre, Wilson worked to push the 19th Amendment in Congress, which gave women the right to vote. Wilson's second term in office occurred during World War I, and at first he advocated for neutrality. However, after German submarines launched attacks against U.S. merchant ships in 1917, and the U.S. learned of Germany's attempt to persuade Mexico into an allegiance against the United States, Wilson asked Congress to declare war on Germany. The United States' participation in the war helped to secure victory for the Allies, and the war officially ended with the signing of the Treaty of Versailles on June 28, 1919. Although President Wilson personally negotiated the Treaty of Versailles and strongly advocated for the League of Nations, a precursor to the United Nations, the treaty was rejected by the Senate. Wilson believed the League of Nations would help to prevent another war like this in the future, but the Senate prevented the U.S. from ratifying the treaty and joining the League. It wasn't until 1921 that Congress approved a resolution that formally ended hostilities with Germany. Still, Wilson won the Nobel Peace Prize in 1919 for his work on the League of Nations and the Treaty of Versailles. During the last year of his presidency, Wilson suffered a second stroke, which left him incapacitated. On February 3, 1924, he died from a stroke and heart complications, just 3 months after leaving office.